So this is another of these introductory talks, and I'm planning to talk about different kinds of practice that we do at Mountain Cloud. You've just had a taste again of I'd say the primary, most of the fundamental, basic, and in a sense important one, and that's becoming at home in our own breath. And it's been a foundational practice in Zen, I'm sure for a very long time, as it has been in Buddhism and other practices. And in fact, even the practice of counting the breath in sets of 10 goes way, way back to at least the 1st century CE. There's records of that in the various Buddhist traditions. Just so that you have a sort of bigger context, in a sense, breath practice is regarded as one of the forms of, or one of the what am I trying to say? In traditional early Buddhism, there's a teaching that there are 4 foundations of mindfulness, of mindful awareness, 4 areas in which we should plant our mindful awareness, or on which we should rest our mindful awareness. And the first of those 4 is the body. And within that category of body, there are actually quite a number of different practices focusing on different parts of the body, on different aspects of the body, including something rather sort of notorious practices known as the cremation ground practices, where Buddha encouraged followers to go and sit in the charnel grounds where dead bodies were put, corpses. And first of all, you had to find one that was a day old and see what it looked like, and then find one that was 3 days old and 5 days old and 7 days old and 9 days old, getting to see, what it's like when the flesh is gone, but the skin and the ligaments is still there. And what is it like when, the skin has started to go and you can see bone. So really, really getting familiar with what the body is like after it dies. And, it's probably something that we'd all feel decidedly squeamish about, or many of us might, but it's probably also a smart idea, actually. If only we could do it, these days we keep death at arm's length, or more so. But actually, it's probably one of the most important teachers we could ever have, is recognizing our own mortality. But, that aside, just coming to be aware of the experience of our bodies in the present moment is what really all the various body awareness practices in that first category of mindfulness, they're all about. And among them, Buddha does actually say in one comment that breath awareness is preeminent. He calls it, if you only do one practice, you can do that. It's the royal road to awakening. But there are, aside from the body, 3 other foundations of mindfulness. And actually in the Zen, it's very much a sort of stripped down form of Buddhism, simplified form of Buddhism, cutting to the chase. One teacher I know says, Vipassana makes local stops, Zen is an express train. And actually, that could sound like it's a bit in favor of Zen, but actually it doesn't have to be. It's a fair enough comment, actually, that Zen does tend to place more emphasis on the possibility of sudden awakening than Vipassana practice does. And Vipassana practice tends to go step by step. Let's do this, then let's do this, then let's do this. Even within a single sit, you might have 4 practices, and you shift from one to another. That would be not how Zen does it. The Zen idea, you could say more, is like, just have one practice and notice all the many seasons that you can go through with just one practice. All the many ways you can experience your life in this moment with just one practice. I mean, it's different philosophies, it's different approaches, neither is better or worse. But it is true, I think, to say that one practice will end up, in a sense, being various practices, because you'll go through many different things with that one practice. So that's something that we keep returning to, actually, throughout a Zen training, breath. A second form of practice we do here is koan study, koan practice. In a way, actually, koans you could sort of regard as a bit of an adjunct to breath practice, because especially the first koan that we sit with, we really add it to our breath practice. It's, I say the first, there's a handful of so-called early koans or breakthrough koans or preliminary koans, as they're sometimes called. Things like, what is this? Who am I? What's my original face? And a famous one, Mu. A monk asked Joshu, does a dog have Buddha nature? And Joshu answers, Mu. And we just sit with that little sound, Mu, and we add it to the breath. I'm just giving you a heads up on this because we don't actually start koan practice until a teacher has sort of encouraged us to do that. And the teacher sort of, you know, when we have a teacher, they sort of assess when our practice should be what kind of thing. I mean, we talk about it together, of course, but you have some input on that. And usually we don't actually encourage people to just pick up a koan. Of course it happens. And I've never known it turn out badly, you know. But in general, we don't encourage it. That's something I could just say. And then there's a lot of koans after those early ones. And, you know, I suppose if you map it onto stuff I've said before in these talks, somebody would come to koan training, we've got to be kind of somewhat settled in our practice. So that means sitting steadily every day, having done some retreats, you know, really having had a good taste of what this is like doing this Zen practice, and really feel, you know, it's the thing for me for now. You know, I'm happy to be doing this for a good few years probably, you know. And then if we've got curiosity, they usually say, you know, if you're curious about the big questions, who am I? What is this life? When I die, what dies? You know, what's alive now? What is this consciousness? What is this body? I really want to examine this stuff, and, you know, what's the best possible way to live? And if these questions are really coming up for somebody, then probably koans are a good idea, because they have a tendency to I'm going slowly because I'm choosing my words carefully. They have a capacity for leading us to rather profound experiences in which we understand and experience our sense of self and the world and the relationship between the two in a radically different way. And this experience in Zen is known as kensho, seeing original nature. And koan, a first koan can, not reliably and predictably, but can make that kind of experience more likely, as long as we're not seeking it. That's sort of why we sit with them. But then, having had a kensho, if it's been clear enough, we can then sit with other koans, and those koans over time will help us to live what we've experienced in kensho more consistently, in the end, in every moment of our lives. That's sort of the program. And, you know, that happens through more experiences and so on. That's koan study. Then there's a study, kind of practice called just sitting, where we don't follow the breath, we don't have a koan, we don't have anything. We just sit. And in our organization, our line, we think it's quite an advanced practice and not very easy. And but different groups would feel differently about it. But some people just want to do that. They just know right off the bat, they don't want to do anything like koans. They want the bare minimum, no clutter, no nothing. I'll just sit. And they sort of find their way to having a peaceful, fulfilling, energizing experience doing that. So that's another thing. And then also, I brought in more forms of mindfulness practice than in traditional Zen, because I think they're helpful. And so, I'll be happy to look at other forms of mindfulness practice from the four foundations of mindfulness. And I'm trained actually in another system, Shinzen Young's system, and to teach that. So I teach that. It's just a slightly more comprehensive form of mindfulness practice that can be very helpful. So those are the main forms of practice we offer at Mountain Cloud, and let me stop there and let's see